right, so we are joined by one of my favorite former students, graduate of Raymond High School 2015, and big truck driver, Alec Billips. We have a room full here with us at Velma Jackson, and we're recording this for our friends at Rosa Scott, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. We are in the transportation, distribution, and logistics career cluster, which truck driving, as popular as it is also a huge part of that. And you are a huge professional at this. You've been doing it for a few years. And I know you enjoy it, but I think it's important we let these kids know the realities of it, the pros and the cons, because we cannot have a society without truck drivers. It literally is one of the most important jobs on the planet, but I think it's a lot more difficult than these people realize. So before we get into what it is you do and what you do on a day-to-day basis, some of the skills, let's talk about your background, graduate of Raymond High School 2015, and then take us from there about how you got into this position as a driver.
Okay. Well, to start, my name is Alec Billips. I graduated from Raymond High School in 2015. I worked at McDonald's about the rest of that year. Then I enrolled in Hines Community College. My major was commercial aviation. For those of y'all that don't know, that's to, fly the big plane, the Deltas, the Spirit, United Airlines. So I did that for I'd say about a year and a half. And then after I did that, I had a baby. So I decided I needed to get into something where I can make some money for real. So I enrolled in a truck driving school in February of 2018. And I went through that about a month, maybe a month and a half worth of schooling. And then I got my CDL about a week after my birthday, which is in March 7th. So I'm sitting at about 4 years, maybe about 11 months or something right now. So I'll be at 5 years pretty soon. And
Wow.
So I did that, got into my first job, just trying to figure everything out. I currently do flatbed, which is why I want to show the guys some of the stuff that I haul, because what I do is very different from what a lot of the other guys do.
Yeah.
Mine's is about the most work that you will do in the trucking industry.
Yeah, and with the flatbed, I know that's a lot of construction equipment. That's a lot of underground piping, a lot of steel, a lot of construction stuff. So, but it also pays more because you have to really secure the cargo. Because what we were saying before you came on is that everything that's manufactured after it's made has to be shipped.
Mhm.
So the shipping need is not going to go away. However, I just cringe when I hear students say, "Well, I'm just going to drive trucks," like it's something easy, like they're just handing out CDLs and like they'll just let anybody do it. So obviously, you did say you got your CDL kind of quick, but it wasn't just let me show up and get a CDL one day. So talk a little bit about the training that goes into getting a CDL.
Well, the training note is not it's not just show up and get it. You have three main backing maneuvers that you have to do, you have to accomplish. You have a certain amount of times that you can fix that situation before you fail that part of the test. You also have to be able to drive the truck efficiently and safely. Um, Not only that, the thing that gets the most people is what's called the pre-trip, which is you have to know different parts of the truck under the hood. So if you're not mechanically inclined, it's easy enough to learn if you studying, but I've seen guys who won't study, they don't know anything. But if you are mechanically inclined, you really have to know the parts, know what the function is, to know if there's a problem with it or not. And that's really the main thing when it comes to that. A lot of guys get stumped on that because they can be very particular on that pre-trip, because that is going to decide whether or not at the beginning of every day if you should drive that truck or not.
Yeah, and that's important because if somebody's paying thousands of dollars to have something shipped, they're going to want it there on time. And if it's not there on time, they're going to want a dang good reason that it isn't there.
Yeah. And even though you say you break down, is a good excuse because we know these machines do break down, but customers don't always want to hear that because some of these customers have their own trucks, so they know what to do and how this goes. And they
Absolutely.
know that maintaining, having good drivers that know how to point out a problem will save time in the end. So If you tell them you're gonna be a little bit late because you have a problem, they're fine with that. Other than saying, "Oh, now I won't crank." I mean, these are things that you could have prevented.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm glad you brought that up about customers because a lot of people say I want to drive trucks because I just want to be by myself. Yeah, you are on the road a lot, but when you get there, you are the face of the company. If your company has brought something to this paying client, you're going to have to be able to talk about exactly what you have. You can't let the company get screwed out of money. You have to be able to know how to read an invoice, and you got to be able to communicate with whoever you're shipping from and to, because you're the only person that's going to be the intermediary between those two. So you may not be a public speaker, but you're going to have to be a customer speaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of things they tell you first off, they say that you're the face of the company. The only time they ever see anybody else is when they're talking to the CEO about getting the contract set up. So that's it. That's the only person they see is every driver that comes through. And yeah, you do need to know how to read the invoice because I've been to some places where the guys there don't know how to read the invoice. So you have to tell them what they're getting. And you
Yeah,
have to make sure it's right. So, you don't have to go back and fix that problem.
yeah, and talk a little bit about time management on the road, because obviously you have the 11-hour clock, but
Yeah.
you have to be able to know how to read the map and use a GPS, because if there's a wreck or there's weather, you can't always just use that as an excuse either. Because if there's a construction project on a deadline and they're dependent on that materials, they really don't want to hear excuses. So talk a little bit about that, because on the road, if I'm paying you $20,000 to get me something, I want it there when you say it's going to be there.
Yeah, GPS, that's good to have. It's important. Don't let that get you away from learning how to read a map. I was lucky. My first company, they taught us how to use the maps. They were cool with us getting GPSs, but they really dove us in on that, on reading the map and figuring that out. Um, Figuring out what's truck routes and what's not, because it's not the same as putting it in the GPS and driving down the street. I mean, some of the worst places you can go to where a GPS will get you messed up is New York City, uh, Los Angeles, California, uh, Seattle, Washington's kind of bad. Um, so it's a lot of places that you can get messed up just following the GPS, even the ones that are for trucks.
Now that's kind of cool. Now I forgot to ask you, where are you right now?
Right now I am in what's this called? Oh, it's a Grand Chain, Illinois.
Okay. Now that's something that I think is cool, because I'm a big travel person. So talk a little bit about, you do get to see the country or even the continent, because you get to go to, some drivers get to go to Canada and Mexico and things like that. But it also takes a toll on you, because a lot of people think they want to do it and then they're like, I can't be away from my family like this. So even though there is a lot of money to be made, the toll on being away can be tough.
Yes, a lot of people they jump in when they hear the money side of it, not understanding what it takes to make that money, that sacrifice of being away. So a lot of them get to that point. They'll drive over the road for maybe a year. They're like, I just can't take being gone that long. So they do have other alternatives like a regional where you stay in one little area, or you might be a local guy like Pepsi or Cisco or something like that. And that normally fits those guys that just can't stand to be away. For me, I do like to travel all over the country. Now I have been to all 48 states, and I have been to Canada.
That's incredible.
Um, Company
That's
I'm working with, yeah, the
uh,
company I'm working with now is they go to Alaska, so I'm trying to see about getting one of those runs set up.
now that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Um, now you've talked about your company. I hear so many people say, "Well, I I'll just buy my own truck. I'll just be owner operator." But that takes a little bit more than people realize as well, because right now, especially with the fuel prices, um,
yeah,
yeah, that has to come out of your pocket. When you're a company driver, the company's paying for everything. If you're an owner operator, the truck breaks down, you're paying for the maintenance cost. You're paying for the fuel cost. You're paying for your hotel. And yeah, you may make more on the end of it, but the money you put in up front is going to be way more than a company driver.
right. I have a friend who has his own truck, and I've leased a few trucks from a few different companies, so that expense is really there. It's the fuel price was terrible. It went from being maybe $1,200 a week normally to run a full week to being about $2,500. And you got to think about the profits either stayed the same or went down. So now the company's seeing less money. You're probably still getting paid the same if you're getting paid by the mile, but the company's seeing less money, and that's why they're
All right, I lost you there for a second.
operator. It's definitely tough on the financial side because it can cost you about $7,000 just for one part.
Yeah.
And we do have a back order problem.
Oh yeah, because again, that goes back to the cost of fuel because people they want to do it all on one shipment and having enough people to ship it because the fuel cost they had to lay off drivers, and I think that's important to note as well. Even though the demand for driving will not go away, there aren't just jobs are handing out like candy. Now, one thing I always like to mention because obviously there's money to be made as an on the road driver or even a regional driver or even a local driver. But I have kids that have told me they want to drive, but I know for a fact they're smoking weed every week, and we can laugh about it all we
Yeah,
want. We can say, we can argue saying it should be legal. You can think whatever you want. I don't care. But at the end of the day, if you're failing drug test, you're not going to be able to drive. And there's no argument that this truck driving is the most drug tested job on the planet, other and pilots and truck drivers are the two most drug
yep,
tested jobs on the planet. So you can talk about it all day long, and you can say you're not doing it, but drug tests aren't going to lie. So that is something that people need to be aware of. If you're somebody that likes to partake, by all means, that's none of my business. But if a company is paying you to ship, they have every right to drug test you.
right, yeah. um, some people they think that's just worth it. To me, no college degree, even though I went to college, that compared to this job that I could easily jump into after about 6 weeks and start making some type of money. I think it's worth it to not do any type of drugs because it's not really many jobs that are gonna pay you like this, other than other trades. But most of those drug tests as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, obviously, anytime you're operating heavy machinery, you're going to be tested. But when you're on the road and putting a company liable for the safety of other drivers, you are going to be tested, and there's no ifs ands or buts about it. Even if you're owner operator, you're still subject to drug test to keep your license, and that's just federal law. And, there's no argument about that. But I think that's important for young people to realize if they're interested in driving, that's great because we need them, but it's also things you have to change about yourself or not do about yourself if you want to be profitable in it. Now, one thing I also want to mention is that, you know, drivers are always seen as kind of just males, but there's a huge need for female drivers. And even some companies are more likely to hire a female driver because females are seen as more dependable. So talk about a little bit, the need for females in driving.
Yeah, it's a real big need and a big push for female drivers. Let me see. About a year ago, a company I was working with, they had a very bad situation of not having enough female drivers to train the new female drivers coming in. So
Oh,
yeah, it was a real shortage, and not only that, some of the female drivers preferred to train some of the male drivers because they're not as picky. They're more easygoing. It's easier to get them in, get them trained, and get them out. So the need is there for the female drivers. I have a few female driver friends, and that need is definitely there. They also get they're more likely to get the raises because of that. Um, it's a really big need.
yeah. And we were just talking too, every field needs diversity. And you talked about commercial aviation. Aviation is one of the top in the world that needs diversity. But truck driving is no different. For years it's been male dominated. But if women want to make money for themselves, by all means, they need to jump in because there's a need for them. Because, like we said, everything that's made, everything that's sold has to be shipped. So the need
Right.
for shipping is not going to go away. Now, I do have some questions from the students. I'll get to as many of these as I can. Um,
Okay.
uh, this is a good one to start off. This is Christian Mitchell. She's a junior, and she asked, "What's the longest haul that you've ever done by yourself?"
By myself, North Carolina to California.
Woo! Was that about 3,000?
It was right around 3,000. That took pretty much my whole week.
Wow. Uh, okay, and this is Rashawn Smith. He's interested in driving. He's a sophomore.
Okay.
He was asking about the longest load, but he asked, when you were doing the longest load, how stressful was it there to get it there on time?
Um, Normally they factor in when they set up these appointment times of a time of 55 miles an hour. So they basically do it as if you drove 55 miles an hour the whole time. And that gives you
Wow.
a little leeway to get it there on time and have a little bit of a buffer time in it. But with what I do now is I'm a flatbed driver, so I'm normally at construction sites or um manufacturing facilities. So with them, I normally just call as soon as I pick up. I say, "Hey, I'm expected to be there maybe Monday, and it's Wednesday," and they'll tell me, "Okay, this is our hours, and as soon as you can get it here, we'll take it." So if I get there Friday or Saturday or Sunday and they're open, they'll go ahead and take it off. So with the flatbed, it's kind of putting stress on yourself because we don't have strict appointment times, but these customers can they love to get it as fast as we can give it to them.
Yeah, and then also with the flatbed, you've got to be an expert on those bungees.
Yeah,
Because you can't trust that the people that are giving you the stuff knows how to tie it down. Nobody know. You have to be the expert on not only the transportation but the security of the freight on the flatbed.
yeah, and that's where a majority of our bump in pay from the other drivers comes from is they pay us to know how to do it and the knowledge to do it and the knowledge to be able to teach others how to do it.
Yeah, and that's a huge skill because even if you wanted to step away from the driving, you could still be still work even part time as a logistics person, training people how to secure that because that's a huge skill to have. This is a good one. This is Amari Williams. He's in ninth grade, and he asked, "Are you comfortable with the travel demands of driving?"
Uh, First year it's gonna take some time to get used to. After that first year, you're pretty much set in. You pretty much understand how you want to do things, and then you start to get comfortable. Now, I'm very comfortable. They send me something or they call me and tell me what's about to happen, and I've already have a plan devised as soon as they tell me on how I'm gonna execute it.
Oh, this is a good one. This is Jayla Chambers. She's also in ninth grade, and she asked, "Has there ever been a time you felt unsafe on the road?"
Yeah, every winter. It, it gets terrible. I know for those who haven't been out of Mississippi or maybe not as far north as maybe Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, even out to Wyoming, Montana. Every year since I've been driving, there's been a major crash on I-80 every single year.
Yeah, I-80's a monster.
And it gets terrible out there. It gets down to the negative temperatures. Um, it is wild. I got caught in an avalanche one time.
Ooh.
I had to sit on I-90 about 10 hours.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
Wow.
and we just covered in icy roads.
Wow. Now this is Jarvis Lyles. He's also in ninth grade, and he asked, "What is the process for planning your routes?"
My process is I see where it's picking up, I see where it's delivering, and then I just look at the map. I don't have to use a physical map anymore, so I use my phone. I just pan out of it. I look and see which route I would like, and as I've gotten my experience in, I see which route is the best for fuel consumption, time. Like I-40 might be worse than taking I-10.
Yeah. This is Gabriel G. He's a junior, and he asked, "What is the most important part of your job?"
Most important part, um, I'd have to say securement over anything. Whatever I have has to stay on this trailer.
Yeah, and it's not only a matter of time; it's a matter of safety because again, you're on a major interstate. Something comes off, you've got safety of a lot of people at stake there. So, and that's on top of the monetary value of the freight you're hauling. Um, Here's a good one. This is Michaela Davis. She is a junior, and she asked, "What advice would you have for someone that wanted to get into the industry?"
Advice, I'd say ask yourself if you're prepared to be out by yourself. And if you have a friend, they do have team driving, so that means you can drive, your friend can drive, and y'all can be in the same truck and go everywhere together. Um, but just be prepared if you're gonna do this by yourself. Be prepared to do that. Be prepared to go everywhere. Be prepared to have a learning curve to this. It's not gonna be jump in and go. Also, be prepared to see some things that they are not going to be able to prepare you for. There's 48 states that you can go to. There's Canada and there's Alaska. They're not going to be able to prepare you for everything in the short amount of time that they've given to train you.
Yeah. And again, and the training's not cheap. Yeah. So if
No,
it's something, it's something that you really need, as as good as the money can be, and as great as the rewards are, it is something you really need to make sure, because if you pay for the training and they say, yeah, we'll give you a discount, but you are on the hook for this long, there are people that they get into it and like, man, this sucks, but then they're on the hook for $10,000 because they got a discounted CDL training.
yep.
And they're getting that money one way or the other. Now we're almost out of time, and I thank you so much for taking some time for us. I'm really proud to see what all you're doing. It's really cool. But before we go, I have to ask, and I've asked pretty much everybody from the Raymond High class of 2015 the same question. You spent every day of your senior year with me at Raymond High, because you were great about coming to school. You were, good student. You weren't just skipping all the time. So, how much of what I told you was going to happen in life actually happened?
I'd say everything. I mean, it's a real shock when you get out of here.
Well, again, I'm glad to hear you say that. And again, you're one of the most inspirational students I've had, and just one of the highlights of my career. And I'm so proud to call you a former student. And you're a great father, and you're great at what you do. So just so proud of what you're doing. And again, Alec Billips, in Grand Valley, Illinois, in the middle of nowhere, took some time to join us today. On the road driver. Thank you so much for joining us, my man. Good to see you.
Hey, it's no problem.
I talk to you soon, buddy.
All right.